Hello and welcome to week 3 of doing a Zentangle every day for a year. My name's Helen and I hope you enjoy this tutorial. All the designs this week will have a daisy type theme. As always, I'll show you a picture of the design that we're aiming to do before we get started. For this first design, we will draw 2 horizontal lines across the middle of our page and then do a semicircle in the centre either side of that line. I wanted to make sure that I'd left enough space for the other flowers, so just with a pencil draw a circle around those semicircles so then you can figure out the spacing for where the centre of your other 2 will go. Then you can go ahead and fill in the centres of those ones as well. I always find it easier doing the top petal and then the 2 sort of side or edge ones as it were, and then filling in. So basically doing the petals that would be the quarter edges, each quarter, so 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and then filling in those other petals. As you'll see, when I don't do that, I tend to go a little bit offline. So again, just repeat that for the other 2 halves that you've got. Then we're going to add some semicircles the opposite direction. So these are going to be half flowers coming in from the opposite way to the ones that we've already done. So again, just doing the same thing, adding in our centre semicircles and then adding the petals around the edge. I just wanted to show you the difference when you fill in the background black. It just really pops out the flowers or any design that you're doing. I'm only going to do half here so you can see the difference between the 2 and when you've filled it in and when it isn't filled in. I've done my designs quite freestyle and not really worried too much about them being precise, but if you prefer a more precise design, feel free to measure out your spacing so that they're equal and to get a much more geometrical style design. So we start with semicircle, the centre of our flower, and then do another arch over the top just to give some separation from the flower, from the petals, that is, and the centre of the flower. As you can see here, I've not done a pencil guideline and I've not done my 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock petals first, which has meant that they're slightly more pointing upwards rather than going around nicely. Next, we're just going to add some arches all the way around each flower, and then the valley of each of those we are going to colour in. Those will be like our centres for our next flowers, and then again an arch over the top to give a bit of separation, and then adding on the petals. And again, if you find it easier to do a bit of a pencil guideline first, go ahead and do that. And basically just repeat exactly the same pattern. Go from the top middle of each of your previous arches and basically just do the same again, filling in the gaps using the valleys of each of those dips as the centre of your next flower. This next design is quite similar to the last one, except that the bottom row overlaps slightly more. So again, we'll do our first flower with our centre in the corner, but then the centre of our next flower is going to come right up next to that petal, so we're not going to leave a space. We're going to put the centre right next to it, so it's almost overlapping the previous flower. And we're just going to keep going till the end doing this. As you can see, I add a pencil line across the top because I was noticing that my petals were getting larger and larger, and I wanted to try and keep them the same size, so just drew a line across to make sure that my flowers stayed roughly the same size as I went along. Then, similar to the previous design, I just do some arches over the top of these flowers and use the valley dips again for the centre of adding my next flower design. As you can see, my sizing wasn't very consistent, and I would definitely recommend, again, if you're wanting a bit more consistency in the shape and size, that you do a pencil line first and possibly even measure it out a bit so that you get a more even distribution of your pattern. But if you don't mind it being different and having different shapes and sizes, then, you know, by all means, just let it flow. For our next daisy type design, we're going to again add our semicircles. I'm going to put 3 on this one, so one in the centre with one each side of that. Then just use my pencil line to show me roughly the size of the petals and where they're going to go. And again, we're going to do arches over this one. I've tried to keep them slightly closer to the flowers than previously. Then we're just going to add some lines, almost like a rainbow. Do 4 stripes through those, or on the top of those. So every dip, add 4 kind of rainbow lines over the top. And this time we're going to go directly above the previous flower. So we're going to add the centres of our flower on the top of each of those domes. And again, just keep repeating this till you've filled up the space. So day 5, I thought I'd do a slightly different design and just do a one-off large design rather than a repeated pattern. So we're going to start with a circle. I'm going to do a straight vertical line down the middle and then across so that we can get 6 petals. And draw a larger circle around just for the sizing. So I wanted 2 centre circles and then adding the petals around. As you can see, the petals are not coming to a point, but they're joining the central circle with a bit of space between them, if that makes sense. We're going to be adding a second inner line to the petals, so just make sure that you're making the petals large enough to add that extra line inside afterwards. So I get my smaller fine liner, the 0.25, and then just add that internal line for the petals. And also add the centre for the flower as well. Then we're going to use a pencil next for the middle of the petals. So we're going to start by just doing a small circle near the top, and then do a sort of wiggly line, sort of a very mild S shape, as it were, down from that into the centre. And then we're going to use that same smaller fine liner just to go around the edge of that shape. I then decided on a whim to add some leaves. I didn't actually plan on doing that in my original design, but thought I would just add a little bit of extra focus to it. Then again, the thing that makes all the difference is just filling in that negative space with the black pen and just making it really stand out. So there we have week 3 done. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please remember to give me a thumbs up if you've found it helpful, and share this video with anyone who might enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next week.